The halls of bondage who lodge to the shores of Tripoli. We find our country.
Hello and welcome to today's Battletech presentation. Today we are going to be looking at one of those mechs that is iconic to the clan invasion, but unfortunately as basically, I'm not going to say go out of style, but has basically gone out fighting. The Warhawk is one of those machines that never had a production facility in the inner sphere, and even in the clan space, it really hasn't been produced as much as some of the other machines would have been. It's also an extensively popular machine, especially amongst clan commanders, so it has the limitations of getting blown up quite a bit. And since there's no massive production of the design, you have to manufacture a lot of the parts when required, making it very difficult to maintain in the long run. The Warhawk is almost extinct in the inner sphere at this point in time, but if you look at some places in the deep periphery, you might start seeing a whole lot of them. So we're going to start talking about it now. The Warhawk is an 85-ton behemoth. It actually looks a lot bigger than it actually is. Some people actually compare it to the same size as a 100-ton Battletech at this point. And it was really a staple of clan warfare for most of its time. But now, like I said, it's almost gone. Popular pilots of the machine, you've got Vlad Ward, who was a Khan of Clan Wolf for the longest time. Rana Kerensky, who was also, well, part of the clan leadership for Clan Wolf in Exile, as an example. A few other important individuals, like even Katrin, well, at that point she was Katrin Wolf, even though it was Katrin Steiner Davion, piloted a Warhawk as well. You can see that it was a popular machine amongst the leadership of the clan warrior caste. The production only started in 2999 through Clan Smoke Jaguar, so it's not a machine that had a super long production history. So when they were deployed in the clan invasion by mostly Clan Smoke Jaguar, it could explain why it was limited in distribution. It was also only produced in about one location in clan space on Smoke Jaguar territory, which was kind of sparse in terms of advanced resources. And nowadays, I'm not sure if the Homeworld clans are still producing the Warhawk or if they've completely stopped as well. No new model have basically been seen in the inner sphere since basically the clan invasion. Everything that was brought in was used, and there's no brand new Warhawks from what I understand. They were really popular and everybody in the inner sphere used them, and then they couldn't because there weren't any spare parts for the darn thing. The Warhawk is a really fancy piece of Omnimech technology, and it's probably the reason why the production was never moved to the inner sphere, because that was actually quite a complex beast to build. At 85 tons, it uses a 340 XL from General Systems, basically a GM engine with the serial number filed off, to allow it to go 65 kilometers per hour in a straight line, using a chicken walker design for its legs. Protected by 13.5 tons of the good ferrofibrous armor, which is almost as much as you can have on a mech that size, and probably about as efficient as you can be in terms of coverage per ton. The base design gets a total of 20 double heat sinks built into the machine. Most Omnimechs would limit the amount of double heat sinks that are directly built into the machine, probably just going by with the number that is that you can basically fit into that engine that you have. But for the Warhawk, they really went all out with that 20 double heat sinks, because it's going to be a machine that's going to run hot in almost every single one of its configuration. You've got heat sinks set up in the legs, which is a good place to put them, because if you can get into water, it will allow you to drain some of the heat a little bit quicker, and the rest of them are mostly mounted in the left torso, which is basically a heat sink battery. That leaves you with 32.5 tons of pod space, which is quite significant, and that you can use to build, well, quite a few things with weapons and the arms. Another thing that is special on the Warhawk is that almost all of the variants of the design and configuration uses an advanced targeting computer, which can't be built into the machine since the computer size varies depending on what weapon load you're going to use. But even there, the Hawkeye J360 is actually an extremely accurate long-range targeting computer that is coupled with that advanced targeting computer that you have to build into the machine. So you're extremely accurate at long range, whatever happens. Really, when is 20 double heat sinks not going to be enough, says the 3050 Inner Sphere engineer right before the clan started showing up with Warhawks, and Novas, I should say here. Really, it isn't enough when the Warhawk actually packs 4 clan-grade ERPPCs, which can generate 60 EAT values. That's the way engineers kind of calculate here. An ERPPC generates about 15 EAT unit when it shoots, and a double EAT sinks can drain too. So if you start doing the math, you are going to overeat quite a bit if you shoot all of those 4 ERPPCs at the same time in a volley. But whatever gets hit by all 4 of them is probably going to be vaporized. All of them are also linked to that targeting computer, so they are just the step up in terms of accuracy with all the bells and whistles put in and a very good clan pilot to begin with. That makes the Warhawk a devastating machine at all ranges, since those ERPPCs don't have a minimum range, like the standard PPC the Inner Sphere commonly uses. To add to this, you also have an LRM-10, which is not a bad weapon for backup or for indirect fire. But, you know, you can always put more heat sinks in the end. Each pilot is going to be a little bit different. Since it's an Omnimech, you can modify it to just about any standards you need it to be. But the prime configuration of the Warhawk is generally regarded as quite a beast. The real beauty of an Omnimech is that you really don't have to limit yourself to that Warhawk Prime if you've bought a Warhawk. Omnimechs can be basically modified in a couple of hours with a decent refit bay, and you can bring it to just about any configuration that you need, as long as you've got a computer that can interface with whatever you're piloting. As an example, Configuration A uses a pair of ER large lasers and a 10 class LBX autocannon with 2 tons of reloads. That's pretty decent, and it gives you a different kind of loadout from that original one, which can help against VTOLs or other aircrafts that could attack you. You get as a support an LRM-15, very, very good for indirect fire, and a 6-tube of Streak SRMs, which are very nice when something gets close by and you need to crit seek or do severe damage to a vehicle. As a vehicle hunter, that Configuration A works really well. Configuration B, as an example, is a support unit, which uses a Gauss rifle as its main gun. Gauss rifles are very popular, once again, with a very good range, and you're backing this up with a trio of ER medium lasers and a ER small laser. If tanks decide to come by or anything decides to come close, you got 2 6-tube SRM launchers as well, and an arc missile beacon to tag whatever you're getting into fights with, so the others can shoot missiles more accurately at them. The third of the standard clan invasion style of design was Configuration C, which was meant to be a powerful mech hunter. You use the basis of the Prime to go with the 4 big gun kind of setup, but what you do is you put 2 ERPPCs and 2 large pulse lasers, still combined with that targeting computer. That allows you to have a little bit more variety in what you're shooting, allows you to control the heat of what you're shooting a little bit more as well, and you add 3 extra double heat sinks, which would allow you to shoot like 1 ERPPC and 2 large pulse lasers steadily without causing too much trouble. To back you up in case some infantry show up, you also have a flamer mounted on the design. Configuration D is a later design once some of the technology has been developed for it, which uses 2 ERPPC and an Ultra 10 class autocannon. Again, something that allows you to control the heat of what you're shooting more. To back that up, you got an ER small laser and a 9-tube ATM launcher with 1 ton of each of the different types of ammo. It's a very different kind of setup in a way, but still close to your original Warhawk setup. Those are all the ones that I've commonly seen in battle ROMs, and ones that I could probably rebuild fairly simply if someone brings me a Warhawk and asks me to put pods on them. The next 2 following configuration are not what I would call standard, as there were not enough Warhawks around to really make them standard. They're just things that people built and people used a few times, from what I understand. Configuration E is really meant to be an infantry and vehicle destroyer with 4 tons of shooting foam for 3 plasma cannons. Plasma cannons are not as efficient as plasma rifles in my opinion because they don't deal direct damage to a mech. They only deal eat damage basically. They're really, really good against infantry and vehicles, but really against anything that is meant to be sinking some eat using various forms of eat sinks, it's not as efficient. You back this up with a 6 tube of SRM and an ERPPC and large pulse laser. It's still not a bad design, just one that is a little bit odd and that I have never really seen in use. Configuration F is a missile boat sniper, which has an ERPPC in each arm, along with a 20 rack LRM and a center torso mounted 10 rack LRM. So you got 30 LRM launchers ready to go. To back this up as well, you got an Ultra 2 class autocannon, which you might have wanted to use something else instead. I don't really mind it. Like I said, this is not a design that I've seen used quite a bit. At that point, people who had Warhawks were doing everything they could to keep them running, and there were really no new ones coming around. The one people who are actually building Warhawks now is the Scorpion Imperio, which is the clan Goliath Scorpion after they conquered the Hanseatic League out in the deep periphery. They basically took over the entire region and have started using local factories to start rebuilding all sorts of things for their Toman, running from larger stone rhinos, Warhawks, and everything in between. A lot of people are trying to buy Warhawks off of them, but the Scorpions are really just prioritizing their own military, so they really have no export models available for anyone else. New configurations did pop out of this, and I've got some detail on them, and we're going to try to look at some of them. The first one was actually built as a siege breaker for the war against the Hanseatic League. Configuration G mounts a LB-20X autocannon as a main gun with 2 improved heavy large lasers. That gives you massive, well, let's say short-range punch. Those heavy large lasers still have decent range, but they're not comparable to Clan ER large lasers as an example. And with that LB-20X, well, you can basically blow up things really, really quickly or just shoot a huge spread of bullets. So it's a fairly nice balance. You also have a 6 tube of Streak SRMs, which gives you more of that short-range punch that you might need. Just so you can actually get to your target, the Scorpion's actually mounted a supercharger on that model of Warhawk, giving it a top speed of about 86 kilometers per hour, which makes it one of the most mobile, at least on the ground, assault mech of its category. The last version is the H-config, which uses a 10 rack LRM, like the base design. The PPCs are replaced by a pair of large pulse lasers and a pair of heavy large lasers. Often enough improved heavy large lasers, to be honest. The remaining weight is put towards 4 additional heat sinks to try to compensate for just how heat intensive those heavy large lasers end up being. It's a little bit more accurate than your regular 4 ERPPC Warhawk, but you lose a little bit on the range. I really don't mind it. If someone brought me a Warhawk and said they wanted those pods installed on them, I would probably be happy to do so. The last extremely rare configuration we're going to talk about is actually the T configuration, which has popped up in the inner sphere. Those are old Warhawks being refit. They're not the brand new Warhawks built by the Scorpions. But the way they're set up is with a pair of plasma rifles in the right arm with 3 tons of shooting foam and a pair of ERPPCs. To fill up the rest of the weight, well, you get an extra 10-shot rocket launcher in the center torso. It's a 1-shot weapon. Can be useful if something decides to sneak up on you. But really, the main guns on it are going to be significant enough that you're going to be able to take care of business. This is not a thing that is common. This is not even a thing that I would say is a standard configuration at this point. Just that we've heard that a few people have used something along those lines, basically. As with most Omnimechs, there's not really evolutions on the design that are standard, but we did hear of something from the society, some type of boogeyman that the clans talk about in secret, which was called the Gatekeeper. The Gatekeeper is basically a 90 tons Warhawk with an interface cockpit instead of a standard cockpit, so it requires the pilot to be directly plugged into the mech, which is a little bit more dangerous. It goes the same speed and it has 42.5 tons of pod space, at least from what we've heard, and uses armored shoulder to make sure that those arms stay in place. I'm not saying it existed. It might have just been a prototype. It might have been a crazy idea the society put out. It might just be a story passed around by the clans here and by the techs, imagining something that the society would have done. But it at least comes up every once in a while when we talk about the Warhawk or when we talk about what the craziest kind of designs we've heard of could be. Your prime configuration on that thing would probably have been something along the lines of a regular Warhawk with more heat sinks and with some electronic warfare equipment. If it was built, I'd love to see one, even though I don't know anybody who would be able to use an interface cockpit. Normally, we'd have to see if we can modify it or get something to make it work. The Warhawk was really extinct for all intents and purposes, and the few remaining ones were kept close and not really deployed in normal engagements, maybe just in trials and things like that. With the Scorpions building them again, are we going to start seeing more of these? I don't think the Scorpions want to get into it with other inner sphere powers, but you know, there's going to be situations where they might be able to start selling some. There might be some people from Clan Seafox that show up over there and start trial of possessioning a few of them. So there might be new Warhawks showing up every once in a while. Would it be a mech that I actually buy? More than likely. The price tag on them is massive, just at production cost, and then you add opportunity cost to it. They're not going to be easy to buy. Your best of luck would be to actually be able to salvage one. But it's also a difference maker, so if you are able to get one, it's probably a good idea to get one. Am I actually going to see another one before I die? That's the other question altogether. I don't think they're going to be common enough, especially in my neck of the woods in the periphery, to say that we're going to see Warhawks anytime soon. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me for so long today. I thank you very much for your patience, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.